Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at MACD. It is time for another update, and actually a couple of people requested an update, so here we are. But I also wanted to remind you that anyone can make these requests and I will most likely cover them, especially if there is an actionable trade setup to follow. Now, in the case of this chart, we are still tracking the same two large time frame scenarios from the previous video, where in the blue interpretation we have an ABC pattern that we are tracking, where we are actually expecting still new all-time lows. Now, this interpretation remains a pretty decent possibility and a focus as long as we stay below the $45.9 level at the 78.6% retracement. And then we also have the bullish scenario in which we are tracking a diagonal structure to the upside, where we already have the wave 1 complete and now a wave 2 possibly complete, and now we would be looking for the third wave to the upside, in which we also expect to build an ABC structure for such a wave 3, since it is a diagonal structure and we are expecting zigzag patterns throughout the entire movement to the upside in the 5 waves. Now, we are looking with a decent probability for such a scenario, as long as we stay above the 78.6% retracement at the $2.9 level, which is basically as long as we don't make another low within this wave 2. Now, even if we do, it is not complete invalidation, but really it wouldn't be a focus for me anymore. I would pretty much lead on with the blue scenario for the foreseeable future, either until we make a more significant low and we get a reset, and it doesn't need to be in the full 5-wave structure within the wave C, but it would need to be probably another low, a new all-time low basically. Now, getting here into the shorter time frame, we are tracking the two scenarios slightly differently. Now, for the yellow interpretation, we are attempting to track an impulse to the upside. Now, since it is an A wave that we are building firstly within this structure, we have a bit of an issue, because the A wave could be either an impulse, so this could work out the entire count and it would be marvelous if it did, but it could also be a diagonal structure, a leading diagonal in the wave A, then it would still be a 5-wave move to the upside, but the internal structure of the 5-wave move would be a lot more difficult to read depending on how it actually develops. But then there is also the possibility that an A wave could be really another internal ABC structure, and in that case we could realistically be having a lot of trouble identifying the difference between a B wave or an initial wave A, because again, this could be an ABC structure in an A wave, and that is actually the count we are tracking here in the wave B in blue. So yeah, it can be quite difficult with diagonal patterns, but nothing we can do about that. All we have to do is track what we have at hand, and we cannot change the structure and the market sentiment on a chart. Now, here we are looking, as I was mentioning, at these two different counts, the impulse in yellow and the ABC structure within the blue scenario that would build a larger wave B. And within this movement to the upside within which we still are, we are tracking either the wave C or a third wave to the upside. Now, the nice thing about this area is that we are tracking in either case a 5-wave move to the upside that could develop in many different ways. We are basically expecting just to have a real 5-wave structure. Now, how that develops, it could differ vastly. And what I also want to touch on before we get into the internals here of this movement to the upside is this dashed line that we have here in red, which was basically the start of the resistance area that we have here as structural resistance, basically along these tops that basically formed in this area. Now, it could really be a rectangle that would be pretty suitable for this area, and we did do pretty nicely so far. We did push to a decent level within the resistance, and we had a little bit of rejection initially at the first level that I provided you. But yeah, we managed then to push back within, and we got to quite to high level. But I wouldn't necessarily expect to break the entire resistance area, and even if we do, yeah, this is just on the shorter time frame, shorter range of price that we are really tracking, that it would be out of, because then we still have structural resistance at these previous tops that have formed, and yeah, we would also have to deal with those if we manage to get to them. But that's all good and fine, because right now we are still pushing, in my opinion, still higher within this area, and we could even get towards the top of it before we finish this very movement that we would be at the moment within. And as I was mentioning, we will discuss now the internal structure, and in the previous video I provided you this support zone for the idea of a continuation within this count to the upside, where I was looking here for a fourth wave correction, and I provided you this area probably towards the beginning of this correction, so you basically had all the time in the world to get an entry if you really wanted one. And in terms of peak profits, it was like over 30% from the bottom of the correction to the top of the push, which I'm not even convinced is finished. I could still see a little further upside. But yeah, now we can remove this structure, and I want to present a little bit here the idea that within this wave C in blue, or within the wave 3 in yellow, we have here a 1 2 1 2 1 2 possible interpretation. Now this isn't the only possible way that it has developed, but now I would be looking from this point to a third wave to the upside that would still be ongoing, because yeah, within this area I'm looking here at a wave 1 up, a wave 2 down, a third wave up, a fourth wave down, and then a fifth wave to the upside. Now I'm not convinced that it is necessarily this low that it started. It could still be that this entire movement is the third wave, the exact wave 3. Doesn't matter exactly. The point is, once we have a completion in this area, we could be looking at a more significant correction. Now I'm not necessarily expecting that, but I will add here a count for this idea, where considering that we topped here in a third wave to the upside, I would be looking for support in a wave 4 in, let's see, the area between the $15 level all the way down to the $13 level. Now if we actually break below the 50% retracement here, that would be a pretty great warning sign that yeah, this entire impulse structure that we have been tracking here is pretty much failing, and yeah, we would have to resort to other interpretations completely, probably within both the yellow and the blue scenario. But for now, we can still be looking for this idea to work out. If it fails, that would be a pretty great warning that it could even go directly much lower. I'm not going to presume at the moment, because we are still quite far away from that point, and depending on how the structure develops towards this area, it could develop in a very choppy manner, and then yeah, we could be looking at follow-up support areas below what we have here. But even in that case, it wouldn't be anything as reliable as what we have in this moment for further continuation to the upside. And then if we manage to hold support, and then we build here the fifth wave to the upside, we could actually be in a series of cascading for 5 patterns to complete this entire structure, which would also be pretty much a nice opportunity to have several trade setups that could just automatically work out, but no guarantee on that. And now I want to discuss a little bit the internal structure of this wave 3 that we have here in blue, where if my scroll works, we can track a wave 1 up, a wave 2 down, a third wave up, a fourth wave down, and then a fifth wave to the upside. Now this exact structure, how it developed, this area doesn't matter too much. It is all complete. What I'm only really looking forward to is really this internal fifth wave to the upside, because I believe once this is complete, this entire wave 3 is most likely complete. Now that is of course unless it somehow manages to develop into another series of 1-2 setups that has occurred over this area, and this turns into a larger wave 3. But yeah, that is a bit difficult to predict anyway, and not something we can really rely to happen. Yeah, not something we can really rely on. So now discussing here this structure within this wave 3, I'm really only going to look at this area and say, okay, this could be a 1-2 setup, and then here another 1-2 setup, another 1-2 setup, very tiny here, a third wave up, a fourth wave down, and then a fifth wave. So we would then have this third wave complete, and then we would need a 4-5 to have this third wave complete, and then another 4-5 to have this entire fifth wave complete. So internally, we will for now focus really only on the possibility that, yeah, this third wave is not yet complete, and then I would be looking for support in the area between the $16.8 all the way down to the $16.3 level. Now, if we actually break below the 50% retracement here, it would be pretty much an invalidation also of the interpretation that this third wave has already completed here, because yeah, the actual wave 1 that I am tracking here, this minuscule wave 1, really is pretty much identical to the wave 2. It's just a little higher, this wave 2. Could be a different count that worked out, but overall I would still be looking for this same support zone, and if it fails to hold, I would see that as a pretty big warning that, yeah, we could be heading in a more direct fashion in this fourth wave to the downside, and yeah, we could see a pretty significant drop from that 50% retracement all the way down to the 23.6% retracement if it manages to stop there, and that would be what, like 7% drop. Not too much, but yeah, not insignificant. And for now, there really isn't much else to add, and this video is already so long, so for now, these are the levels, this is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.